You're putting Canadian taxpayers on the hook for a lot of money here. How confident are you that that money will be recouped? And can you talk about kind of the risks of that not happening?
Russia invaded Ukraine and has caused billions of dollars worth of damage to infrastructure, to individuals, and on top of killing too many Ukrainians. We think that Russia should be paying for that, and that's why the freezing of Russian assets and the use of the profits from those assets to support Ukraine in its fight against Russia is the right thing to do.
On the summit that you're going to in Switzerland later today, Joe Biden won't be there. He's going to a campaign event in California instead. Obviously, Vladimir Putin's not going to be there. What are your expectations for what could come out of this, and is it really going to make any tangible difference to this?
There are close to 100 countries that have chosen to be part of this peace process. We need to see peace and stability in Ukraine as we need to see it around the world, and this is part of the effort that we all undertake to engage. I'm going to be focusing in particular on the issue of children stolen from Ukraine by Russia who need to be returned.
Good morning, Ashley Burke, CBC News. During that interaction that you had with India's Prime Minister yesterday, who initiated that interaction? And you mentioned that you said that you need to work on important issues. What are those issues you raised? And what did Modi say in response?
I think you can understand I'm not going to get into the details of this issue. There's important but sensitive issues that we need to follow up on. But this was a commitment to work together in the coming times to deal with some very important issues.
It's a lot of us.
Give you any sort of assurance that he will cooperate with the investigation into the killing of a Canadian Sikh activist, and did you raise that?
Like I said, I'm not going to get into it further, but there are important issues that we need to work on, and we will.
Prime Minister, good morning. Graphic Jikani on CBC News. Are you going to invite Narendra Modi to the G7 in Canada next year if he keeps denying the allegations of his government's involvement in the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar and the foreign interference allegations into Canadian elections?
I can appreciate the keenness with which Canadians are looking forward to next year's G7. However, Italy continues to be the president of this G7 for the rest of this year, and I look forward to working with Prime Minister Maloney and all my G7 partners on the broad range of issues that we've talked about. I will have more to say about next year's G7 when we assume the presidency next year.
Okay, and speaking of Italy, how can you so strongly advocate for abortion back home and then come here and put your name to a final communique that avoids the word entirely in watering down the language? And will you raise this with Giorgia Meloni in your upcoming bilateral meeting?
There are clear commitments in the communique to defending sexual and reproductive rights. There is important work that we're going to continue to do. Obviously, this matters deeply to Canada and Canadians, and we will continue to defend sexual health and reproductive rights, as well as women's rights, as well as LGBT rights everywhere necessary.
Hi, Prime Minister Brian Platt with Bloomberg. Prime Minister Modi was invited here. He played a pretty prominent role yesterday. He was center stage in the family photo. Given the accusations that you've made in the U.S. court case, has he paid any diplomatic price for this? Because it seems like he was welcomed here with open arms.
I think there is a clear understanding that we need to continue to engage across and around the world with various partners, even as we highlight challenges, as we stand up for the rule of law and the principles that drive the G7. We need to engage with a broad range of partners, and that's exactly what we did during the outreach session yesterday.
I also wanted to ask you about French President Macron has talked about building a coalition of countries to put trainers in Ukraine, military trainers potentially. What is Canada's view on that, and have you talked about that with the French president?
During this G7, we had many conversations about Ukraine, about how we need to continue to hold Russia to account for its illegal invasion, to make sure that Russia actually pays for the damage that it has done to Ukraine. The murder of so many civilians. We're going to continue to make sure Ukraine is held to account. Russia is held to account for what it's doing in Ukraine.
Mr. Trudeau, Mackenzie Gray with Global News. Are there currently any MPs in your caucus that are named in the NSICOP report to be wittingly or semi-wittingly participants in foreign interference?
The issue of foreign interference is one that this government has taken incredibly seriously since 2015. We brought in the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians over the objections of the Conservative Party and indeed the strenuous resistance of the Harper government for years. We brought in a renewed NSIRA for oversight over our national security instances, and we created specific bodies of experts,
This
of
guy
top
can't
civil
speak today.
servants to ensure the integrity of our elections. We've also called a number of different reports, including an ongoing report on foreign interference that we're working with right now to see how they can follow up on the NSICOP report.
We've heard from Mr. Singh and Ms. May. They have both said that there are no members of their party who are named in the report. So I'll ask you again, are there any current Liberal caucus members named in the NSICOP report that are wittingly or semi-wittingly participants in foreign interference?
I will allow Mr. Singh and Ms. May to speak for themselves.
Last question.
He won't deny it. He won't deny it. Look at his
Hi,
face.
Annie Bertrand-Oliver with CTV National News. Just going back on that, but why can't you say anymore? Singh and May have both talked about this report and provided substantially more details than you have. So why are you unable to provide any details about what is in this NSICOP report?
I think it's important that Canadians have confidence in our ability collectively as a democracy to defend the institutions and the processes around our elections and our democracy. That is why officials are engaging with the foreign interference inquiry to see how they can
But you're
follow
not
up
answering the
on
question.
the NSICOP report.
And nobody has confidence in you.
You're talking about how Canadians should have confidence in the work that's being done around foreign interference and to prevent that from happening. But Dominic LeBlanc, your own minister, has said that the government disagreed with the committee's interpretation of some of the intelligence. So what are some of the problems with this intelligence, and do you agree with that assessment?
We made clear some of the concerns we have with the way the NSICOP drew its conclusions. I think that is an important part of the process. The NSICOP, the National Security Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, exists so that parliamentarians from all parties can have full access to the work that our national security agencies are doing. That's an important step that wouldn't have happened if
gonna blame Harper.
The Conservative Party had remained in power. We were able to create that over the objections of Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party. So we welcome the work that they're doing, but of course when it comes to intelligence, there are important bodies like the Foreign Interference Inquiry that is tasked to look at this, and we will continue our work with them.
That concludes today's press conference.
Oh,
Thank you,
come
Prime
on.
Minister.